Hello, my name is Fynn, and you're tuned into the podcast that amplifies your new favorite music. We're here with Any Young Mechanic, a 5-piece band from Adelaide. Welcome to Sydney. How are you guys finding your trip so far?
It's been great. We love Sydney. Went to Dumpling Time last night. It was great.
Shout out Newtown.
Yep, shout out Newtown.
I like Sydney very much.
Same. Good dumplings, good times. And then that's kicking it over to you, Luka.
Sydney. Yeah.
Love to be in our nation's fabulous capital, Sydney.
Which is a factual.
It's true.
That's true. Don't look it up.
Yeah.
Just take his word for it. I do love that. With these like big band interviews, like it ends up just being like a passing down the mic situation, and it's like, yes, this is my take and my take. It's a bit of a press conference. Before we jump into it, I just want to acknowledge the land that we're recording on, which is the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. Now, you guys have just gone back from a pretty extensive tour. You've been in Europe. I saw you were doing Amsterdam, the Netherlands. Now, we'll talk a little bit more about touring and all of that, but first, I'm going to hit you some rapid fire questions. First of all, how would you each describe, and you're going to have to do the whole microphone pass for this one, but how do you describe your band sound in one word each?
Ramshackle.
Stringy.
Frogs.
Frog. Hell yeah.
Room.
Good.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, okay, I'm putting you on a desert island for the rest of your lives. I'm so sorry I have to do it. But you all get to bring an album each. What album are you bringing for the rest of your lives?
I'm usually quite bad at answering these questions. My brain kind of forgets everything I've ever listened to. But the thing that's coming to mind is I think having a minimalist record for a long time would be cool. Could also drive you insane, but there's something really nice about minimalism and its kind of relationship with time. So I'm going to go with Different Trains by Steve Reich, the Kronos Quartet recording.
That's great. I've been listening to that actually quite a lot recently. 1941. The thing I always find difficult about these is like, should it be something that I love or something I don't know yet? Because I'm going to get to learn about it on the island. So I'm thinking something that I just bought Julia Holter's Aviary, and I think it's only fair to her that I bring that record along with me, not knowing anything about it, because I'm sure it will be very good. And I'm hoping to simulate that experience at home when I get back.
My instinct is to go with a really long record, but I don't know. I think, the first thing that popped into my mind was Future Days by Can. I haven't even listened to that recently, but it is just music. It never fails me. It never fails me. I always come back to it. And I always say it's I hope I have my bike on the desert island because it's perfect bike riding music. So I ride around on my bike to Future Days.
Probably a long ass record is good, and one that has equal moments of joy and euphoria and sort of dread and existential crisis. So probably Saw 2 by Aphex Twin. Because probably we know how these things go with the desert island. Like things go bad a lot of the time. I've read Lord of the Flies. I know what happens. So yeah, there's that record's got some happy and comforting, but also very scary moments.
I'm going to bring Belle and Sebastian's 1996 record, If You're Feeling Sinister. It's a perfect album. I could listen to it many times over should I have to.
Very good. I do enjoy that, you guys really threw yourselves into the island metaphor. I've got to give you props to the creativity there. And I feel like I believe your answers even more because you've thought about it. You visualized the island. So, I fully believe you. Okay, final question. As a band, what's one of your unpopular opinions about music?
Oh man, hot take.
I like stealing Tom's, but I don't necessarily want to steal Tom's take. Go for a fellow by the name of Tom Katsaris said in an interview that being a musician is cringe, and I think that doesn't get said enough. I think it's really important that we stop lionizing musicians because we are cringe, right? And it's still nice to share and love people that are cringe, share things with them and enjoy the community and be amongst it, but stop thinking they're not cringe. Any musician, even good ones, we're debasing ourselves in doing so. So I think it's important to remember that.
The capacity for cringe is within us all.
And then, like, if we acknowledge that and we still love musicians, even though they're cringe, then we can love ourselves, even though we're cringe.
You said it, Fynn. That's exactly it.
You've been kind of performing in a whole bunch of different places, but so far, what's your favorite place to do a show?
We spent a lot of time in the UK, this tour and the previous tour, and anywhere kind of like north of like London is you get really warm reception and people are really friendly and really care about music. I think both times we played Paris, it's been really great for similar reasons. Like people are really sort of enthusiastic about music and come out and have fun. Croatia was a real, that was like a sleeper hit. Lots of people rocked up for the set and it felt really good, especially playing to people that, you know, we have no idea how to speak their language. It felt like really gratifying that there was so many people. Great. Yeah, that
privilege.
That people who don't even really know what you're joking about in between songs, like they're there showing up and listening. That was pretty cool. Yeah, Zagreb is a cool city.
Yeah, I mean, in an instance like that, you're like, wow, you're just so here for the music because, like, you don't know what my jokes mean, you don't like whatever, you just love the music, and that's on the other side of the world as well, which is awesome. You played, like you said, a lot of the UK. You also played Reading and Leeds, but not only that is a huge accomplishment. You were the first artist ever to play Reading and Leeds without any music out, which is incredible. Like, how was that experience?
We played to a bunch of confused people at first, and then we won them over, and then they were ostensibly fans of the music by the end. Actually, wait.
One person already knew the lyrics.
Oh, yeah. Well,
I don't know how that.
We have some people who can hack the mainframe and get all the music out before it comes out. But I'm pretty sure one of them, they had Shady Nasty playing his house music before he went on, which was like, kind of gave me a metaphorical armor. No matter what happened in the subsequent 30 minutes, I was invincible because I had the power of Western Sydney on my side. So shout out Western Sydney.
Well, not having music out on like streaming services and all that, would you say that added pressure or took it away a bit playing such a massive stage like that?
I think it took away the pressure because it was such a ridiculous situation that none of us thought we would ever be in. I mean, obviously, we were not responsible for the reason like why we played at Reading and Leeds. It's that we got very lucky and we had a really great team and a booking agent who somehow was able to pitch that as an idea. So I think not having music out was great because then people ask you, are you on Spotify? And you go, no. And that was just a very funny situation to be in for a while. It's definitely much better having the music out now because it means people can listen to it and that's kind of a more normal way to be a band. But it was just such a baffling experience that I think the absurdity of not having the music out helped.
Yeah. Some people were kind of mad at us. They'd be like, you guys know that like a lot of people listen to music on streaming services, right?
Particularly the older.
Yeah, and like it's funny how quickly people who could only listen to music on physical media have given up on it entirely. I think they maybe feel a little bit cheated that they had to pay for music so long and that kids these days get music for free.
Well, it isn't like you said, it's a bit of a return to form. Like I feel back in the day, you'd just see a band and, you'd go and buy the record or whatever. So it's kind of nice to do the whole like discover. It's kind of like what you said, Sam, is that, you discover like it doesn't need to be something you've heard before. If you discover it on the desert island or at Reading and Leeds, and, sometimes that's the magic of it. Well, you do have music out now. You have a brand new album, which came out very recently called The Modern Shoe is Ruining the Foot. I have to ask about that album title. It's a great album title. What was the inspiration behind that, if you can share?
We can share, absolutely. It basically just came from a friend of ours who was kind of spending a lot of time at my place before he moved to Melbourne, and he was like scrolling around on his phone for like really, really long time. He was really getting in the bad zone there, and he kind of threw his phone away in disgust and was like, "Oh, I keep getting ads that say like the modern shoe is ruining the foot. Like, what's all that about?" And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I just wrote it down, and then it just kind of stuck around in our heads, and it kind of felt like true to what we were experiencing. And I think that things that lots of people experience.
I mean, you mentioned earlier, like the album titles tend to be the sort of things that just really stick in your head. And I feel like that's something I hear all the time. It's like, how do you come with an album title? I just couldn't stop thinking about it. And it's like, sometimes it just comes to you rather than you know, sitting down and be like, what am I going to call this thing? I was reading a Billboard magazine article about you guys, and there was a really interesting kind of quote in there that said that this record doesn't sound like an album that could come out of Australia in 2026. And you know, absolutely, there's so many influences on here. Like track one, you put it on, and it's like, okay, like there's some Celtic influence here. But I want to kind of, what does that mean to you guys for your sound to be this eclectic mix that isn't necessarily defined by place or time?
To me, the way that I like found music or discovered music was always sort of through a little bit like people that I knew recommending stuff, but a lot of like trawling the internet and like archives of things. And back, you know, when, you know, Pitchfork was like really like in the early 2000s, a repository of a lot of like music that people thought was cool in like a scrappy way. Back when it was a scrappy website, basically. And not a lot of that music is Australian. And I love a lot of Australian music, and it's not to sort of disparage Australian music, but just because in this generation, we are exposed to music from all over the world, or like way more than maybe people growing up in Adelaide in the 80s would have been. So I think that just comes out in the way we play. I know during the pandemic lockdowns, everyone's favorite interview topic, you know, a lot of Luka and Thea, you guys were really influenced by like the windmill scene coming out of London. I don't want to speak for you for that, but like, yeah. So that like, you know, the fact that YouTube's able to beam that into, then that will affect how we make stuff. So I think that's what I interpret the sort of the non-Australian factor is not necessarily like saying that it's not possible to come out of Australia, but just that the influence exposure was just so much broader than Australia.
One thing I would probably also say is that, you know, not to be too conceited about it, but probably part of the reason why this record doesn't sound like it came out of Australia is because it was made outside of the cogs of the Australian music industry. Because the Australian music industry likes to have an Australian sound, and I think that's a huge misstep because it's really homogenizing, and it's going overseas, people really have an idea of what they think Australian music sounds like, and they're sometimes surprised when we don't sound like that in a positive way. But we know tons of people in our scenes that are not making Australian music. No one is making Australian music outside of the fact that they are Australian. It's just there's this kind of funneling of like handpicking things that fit the sort of Australian archetype of music, I think.
For sure. Like there's Australian music and then there's Australians that make music, and maybe like those are two separate things sometimes. But I guess the other aspect of that is the timelessness of this record. I'm listening to it and it doesn't feel like a music that's made for algorithms or, you know, made to kind of, you know, be a TikTok sound or whatever, which is quite cool. Is that maybe something that you set out to achieve? You wanted to make music that didn't necessarily fit the mold of what maybe so many other people were doing?
I don't know if I necessarily felt like deliberately making something that didn't fit the mold, because I don't necessarily think that is a stable position to make art. I think if you're exclusively opposing something for the sake of opposing it, you don't tend to make good decisions. But it's a mix of like not feeling comfortable with what is in the mainstream and not feeling like that resonates with you, and then going, okay, what does alternatively resonate with me, and then finding out what that is, but not really going, well, I'm going to do deliberately the opposite of this mainstream thing. I think I find that to be a more stable base to make things from.
And I think for me at this period in my time, and I mean when we recorded it, when we were rehearsing it, not that this has changed necessarily, but I was really thinking about what my fellow musicians would find interesting, and like all the people who came to our shows were our friends who were in bands, and we were all making quite genre diverse music. Like I was in a noise rock band, and there was a lot of kind of jangly post rock stuff happening that was all quite unique in its own way, and that was kind of the most interesting and exciting thing for me was being able to play a show and to have my friends who also made stuff be like, oh, that was really interesting. And I think that was a really special time for the Adelaide music scene. Not that it's gone away, but that people were making so many different kinds of music, but everyone was just very excited about each other's approach to music making and collaboration and trying to make things that were really interesting and sincere and weird.
And that really shines through on this record because you're listening to it and there's moments where it feels like a rock album, and then there's moments where you feel that jazz that coming through, and then obviously the folk aspect to it. Is that would you say a lot of that's due to like kind of the 5 year all bringing your tastes and your backgrounds because like you've been in different bands in the past? How much of that is you kind of coming together in a Power Rangers kind of way?
Oh, absolutely, for sure.
I guess like your tastes, your experiences, and kind of like your influences, I guess, which are all kind of like the same thing, like are what you are as a musician, kind of. And so that when you come together, like they don't necessarily all have to line up because that's just who you are as a musician. But then the challenge is, I guess, making something, with 5 different perspectives that make sense together. And that's why it's so important the most important thing is to listen to what everybody else is doing. But in a way, that's sort of the magic of it, is that your musicianship is the culmination of your sort of taste and your experiences.
Yeah, when I'm rehearsing music, I don't really have a lot of conversations at that point in the process about what we're trying to sound like or what specifically I'm trying to reference. It's like you say, it's kind of inbuilt into people and how they play and what they care about. In saying that, we talk about music a lot and share music that we like with each other. And I think that kind of develops us all as musicians and as people and is great and good.
Yeah, and like you said, there's always different influences, and yes, like it pulls together all these different sonic worlds, but it doesn't really feel out of it. Nothing ever feels out of place. It always feels quite considered. There's always method to the madness. So, were you ever guided by some core goals or pillars that you're like, this is what this album's gonna be? Everything else can come around it and take shape in its own way, but this is what we're going for.
Well, we had some pretty clear restraints going in that Sam had kind of posed to everybody as to how we were going to make it. So I think that guided the process, is that we knew we were going to do it live, so that we no cuts, no overdubs. We knew we were going to make it in 3 days. And so I think that influences almost entirely how you make the music and what the rehearsal process is and what that music becomes. And working within parameters that you've picked either just due to resources available to you or due to some kind of artistic mission, enable kind of creativity that you otherwise might not have access to. When everything's available to you, when every option's available to you, that can sometimes be really, stressful or kind of a strange thing to contend with. So having some parameters going in is really useful.
Yeah, I think Jay and I had been making records together for a long time, and I think we had kind of noticed that the stuff that we were happiest with was often based around particular constraints, or at the very least that we were very capable of making work based on really rigid constraints. Sometimes maybe we wondered later why we had picked those constraints in the first place, but it is always inspiring to limit yourself. And Jay did that even in smaller ways with this record of having no toms, having no hi-hats, limiting the kit means that there's certain kinds of ideas that you can have on drums that wouldn't exactly be the first port of call if you had a full kit. And that's a bit of a microcosm for the making of the record generally, I think, was very much that approach. But so we didn't really have to restrict anything else because it was kind of already such a particular circumstance for making music.
So you mentioned that you recorded an album in 3 days. Wow, I didn't know that. So was that and you did it all live and that's 12 tracks, right? Well, was that a unique challenge?
Yes, it was, but we knew that was going to be the case because that was all we could afford. That was the amount of studio days we could book. And I think in the end we did it in 2 and a bit days, really. We didn't really use the third day for recording. But it was a little bit stressful at times. Sometimes you get into like the fourth or fifth take of a song, you'd be like, "Ooh, this is getting a bit tiring." But you know, there's a one take on the album, isn't there? Which one's
Two.
couple one takes?
Yeah.
But yeah, we rehearsed really like pretty extensively, so we were ready for the challenge. But yeah, it's a unique way to record. It's a lot of fun, and it's tiring.
Which songs are the one takes?
Right, You're Wrong, and Atlas, Here You Are.
That's the last track, yeah?
Yeah.
Wow. Was that the last one did you record them in order? No.
No.
We kind of talked about it a little bit of like what felt right each day, what everyone had the right energy for. And then by the last day, it was kind of like, okay, well, what haven't we got yet? It was a bit of like, I think we'd taken a stab at everything over the first 2 days. And then the third day was like, I think maybe barn burning we hadn't quite got right or something like that.
One of either Captain and Compass and Snug Barber. One of those two was still not quite working for some reason, yeah.
Yeah.
And you recorded it all in 3 days, but I imagine that the writing process was a lot longer. I feel like a lot of the time with these debut albums, it's almost this culmination of the establishment period of the band. Did it feel like, what was the process going in? Did it feel like you were kind of pulling together all your early work?
A rough timeline of it was, I think I wrote the first song for the record in January of 2023. And I think I had all the songs written by June. And then we kind of started rehearsing around then.
We never stopped. There wasn't like we were all making records in our own way and in bands and doing things. And this is the debut NER Mechanic record, but it really like captures, January to September 2023, rather than like we were playing these songs for ages, gigging from 2021 until 2023, and we finally synthesized the 12 favorite songs. It's not like that at all. Everyone was very busy doing other things at that point, and then it was like Sam had written these songs in this time period, and this was the first time this group plus Clara, who was playing cello with us on the record, got in the room to make it, and it synthesized that time period. It wasn't like a long accumulation of playing all these songs live. It was like, I think Right You're On, Captain and Compass got played live with the previous outfit, and then basically this album got recorded, and then we got to basically debut a lot of the songs live after having gone through the rehearsal process. So it wasn't like forged in the fire of live selection or anything like that.
Right. So you're all doing your own projects and different bands performing. What was the moment where you thought, okay, NER Mechanic, this is the thing, this is what we want to pull everything into?
Well, I don't think that's really...
We've continued to keep doing lots of different things. I think we've had a pretty rare opportunity with this band where there's been some industry interest in it, which means that we've gotten to do more things like tour and think about how we put out the record, on a bigger scale. But we've all kept making things in various ways, and we all write songs and play in other projects, and that feels pretty integral to who we all are as people, and we want to be career artists and make things for a long time. And that's not to take anything away from how seriously we think about this band. And like, I love playing in this project, but we all really care about each other as artists and as people as well. And that feels like something really important to maintain. But the moment for me also to kind of answer your question a bit more directly was, when Sam brought these 12 songs. I've never had that experience of we're going to make an album. I've got the whole project ready to go. You know, we arranged all our own parts and did that process together. But, I've made a few albums over the last few years with different projects and attempting to do so with my own songwriting at the moment. And it's been very slow, and you do it together and you do it in bits and pieces. So it was a really cool and interesting, experience to be like, this is the record, we're going to make it together. And I really believed in the songs, and I really believed in Sam's songwriting and everybody as musicians, and was really excited to play with everyone. So that was the moment for me. It was when we decided to make the record.
And that's really interesting you say that, because I feel like what really works and what really comes across as quite authentic with the band is I get the impression you're very much of the scene, or of the scene, and you're contributors and builders of the scene. And I'm not as familiar as I'd like to be with the Adelaide music scene, but it feels like that's not something you've ever abandoned or disassociated yourself from, which is awesome. Like, we're having this chat earlier about very often it feels like you have to export an Australian act to import them back here. But it doesn't, sometimes that looks like, kind of shedding the Australian identity a bit and trying to be like, that's not, we're different. It doesn't feel like you guys do that. How important is that to your band identity?
It's super important. I think we're in an incredibly privileged position here, and it's an incredibly lucky position. And I think we kind of want to operate with the idea that this could have happened to really anybody in the scene getting, this level of support. And we want to be a sort of conduit for other acts that we love in the scene that maybe don't want to go through the rigmarole of having enough of a team for a major to even want to deal with you in the first place. Like, that is super restrictive for a lot of musicians who just want to make stuff and leave it there. Because we've taken on this level of organization, it's easier for us to then just be like, hey, that thing's cool, you should go check that out. And then that removes a bit of a burden from somebody in Adelaide who maybe doesn't want to go through all that crap.
If you want a handy guide to the Adelaide scene, check out the Caps Lock Records compilation, Sitting in the Same Chairs, volumes 1 and 2, curated by Thea. It's really great selection of this lo-fi DIY thing that we think is cool going on in the Adelaide scene in the past few years.
I suppose in the period since the album, I guess you recorded the album, you were talking about late 2023. Is that when you recorded it? Yeah. And then you've since done all the gigging and all the shows, but anyone that listens to the album and has seen you live before would notice that the music's a bit different. How they kind of come to take a life of their own just on the road.
Some things I think adapt naturally just by virtue of playing them over and over and over. Things that will just like little variations each time. Some things we have instrumental differences to the recording, so it's adapting them for the live set. And then also you just tend to play them differently because otherwise you get extremely bored and you go on autopilot. So it's nice to just change things up a little bit. Yeah. I would say generally speaking, it's just tiny shifts every time you play it. And now they kind of have a different flavor maybe to the record.
There's been a rude shock where I reheard one of a bit in My House Divides where I had very quickly in the piece invented a fill that's not on the record, and then one time just didn't do the fill live, and it was a bit the alchemy's all wrong because isn't there meant to be a fill there? It's well, I actually heard the record the other day and no there isn't.
It's so funny you said that because I was just about to ask when the record came out. I imagine you would have revisited and be like, oh, I've not been doing that.
Yeah, it's a little bit of that. Yeah.
Has there been a course correction? Except you did it once and we came back to the new version.
I have actually genuinely gone back. That being My House Divides, from the first day into the second day, I had been playing a fill there, but I've kind of tried to go back to not doing that fill anymore.
I think when you're having fun playing things live, you tend to play a bit more, or to play a bit louder, or to play a bit more stuff. So listening back to the record every now and then, which I haven't done in a while, you're like, oh, I could probably strip back what I'm doing a little bit, take it back to the kind of place it started in.
Awesome, guys. Well, we're nearly out of time, which is why it's now time to ask you a question that we ask all of our guests. We have this playlist that we are having our artists build. You are going to contribute 2 songs. One that is an Any Young Mechanic song and one that is one of your favorite Australian songs right now. What are you going to
add? For Any Young Mechanic songs, I'll go with my favorite off the record, which is Every Time You Put Me Up, I Get Down Some New Way.
What a good song, by the way.
Thanks.
Love it.
Thank you very much. Wrote it myself.
Australian song.
Yeah.
Well, unless you have more words about that.
No, I was just going to do both.
We're doing each?
Both in a row.
I'm going to have to ask for one. So you guys are...
Sorry, I bit the...
Well,
yeah.
It's great.
Okay,
I think...
we'll go with that one. You can take the Australian.
I love that someone took charge there.
It's a surprise, but if you get disagree, you're bad people. Underwater by Daisy Picker. Daisy Picker is one of our favorite contemporary acts.
Between the nods of approval, I hadn't seen anyone go, damn it, I wouldn't have picked that. So I think that a consensus was reached one way or another.
That's true.
Well, the album's out. You've done all these shows. You've played all over the world, but you're back here in Australia at the moment, and we're so happy to have you in the homeland. But what's next for Any Young Mechanic?
We will do some shows in Australia. Is that true?
It is true. We're playing at Big Sound in Brisbane. We're playing at Yours and Ours in Wollongong. We're playing at Town Folk Festival, which is the best lineup I've seen in Australia for a long time, in November in Castlemaine. And we will probably play at some other shows in Australia at some point over the next few months as well.
We're still excited to play these songs to Australian audiences that haven't heard them yet. You know that.
And there will be a song that comes out in the next few months, and that's all we can say.
Yeah.
But there is more music coming out.
And the other thing I will say is that we will definitely be releasing another full-length album within the next 12 months. That's the other thing that I'll say. That is definitely going to happen.
Any young mechanic promise.
It's definitely going to happen.
Guaranteed.
That is definitely going to happen.
All right. Everyone here's like, what? I've not heard that. Well, it's out there now, so you can't take it back.
Definitely gonna
The
happen.
clock's ticking now.
Watch this space. May 2027.
I love it when like films do that. They like give like a deadline they're not gonna make. It's like part 2 in 3 months, and it gets delayed like 7 times.
One man.
May 2027, GTA 6 before the second NEM track.
Yeah, we don't know yet. All right, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure having you. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend in Sydney. You've been tuned in, and this has been Any Young Mechanic.